Thank you, Tim. What a great crowd. Thank you all for coming out today. And also thank you to all the families who have lost a soldier. What they've given us to be here can never be repaid. But coming together today as a free society and remembering those is what we can do. So thank you very much. Enjoy this beautiful day and have a great summer.
Echo what Representative Smith just said and express my thanks, first of all, to the community of Punxsutawney for hosting such an important, memorable ceremony. We all recognize that so many have sacrificed to allow us to be here today. And I thank all the veterans who served in our nation's interest for their service. But I particularly want to today recognize those men and women who did not make it home and made the ultimate sacrifice to allow us to be here to recognize and celebrate their sacrifice and the sacrifice of their families. Thank you for being here. Thank you for remembering, and let us never forget. God bless you all.
Retired Medical Service Corps Lieutenant Colonel Burkett.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I'd like to take just a few moments and recognize our veterans and their families, our dignitaries and our honored guests, and our local, county, and state officials on this occasion to honor the sacrifices of fallen servicemen and women who put their lives on the line for our nation, for us, and for future generations of Americans. I'd also like to take a few moments and recognize the Jefferson County Honor Guard. Veterans from all across our nation's history, recent history, are there supporting veterans. Thank you. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Ken Burkett, United States Air Force retired, and exceptionally honored to have been invited to say a few words and to pay homage to the brave men and women who have died in service to this great nation. I am indeed both honored and humbled by this experience and grateful to American Legion Post 62 here in Punxsutawney for bestowing me this great honor. Thank you. I'd also like to take just a brief moment and recognize someone who is very special to me. In addition to my son, who presently serves in the United States Army, she, along with countless others, have sent their children off to war. But by the grace of God, her children returned. This special person is my wife, Brenda Shoemaker, the Jefferson County Coroner. Thank you for allowing your children to serve. Unfortunately, though, some mothers would not see their children again. But take great comfort in knowing that their sacrifices assured that our nation and our freedoms would endure. That being said, let's just take a few moments of silence to honor those veterans, those mothers, those fathers, those spouses, those children, those family members and friends who know all too well the loss of pain. Please bow your head for just a few moments in a moment of silence for them. Thank you. Memorial Day is a day to remember and honor those who have died serving our country. It is a somber day, but also a day of thanksgiving for the sacrifices made by these brave men and women. On this day, we reflect on the price of freedom and the many lives that have been lost to protect it. We also remember the families who have lost a loved one in service to our great nation. Memorial Day is a time to come together as a nation and remember those who have given so much to us so we may enjoy the freedom that we often take for granted. Unlike Veterans Day, which honors all veterans, both past and present, Memorial Day is exclusive to those servicemen and women who have paid the ultimate price to defend our freedom. It is also a time to remember those who have experienced the horrors of war. and have returned home without their battle buddy, their wingman, their shipmate, or their brother in arms who paid dearly for the price of our freedom. We must never forget them as well. Memorial Day also serves as a reminder of the sacrifices and challenges faced by the veterans and their families, who deserve our gratitude and support as well. Memorial Day is a day to reflect on the values of freedom, democracy, and courage that the fallen servicemen and women embodied and defended. I'd like to take just a moment and touch on a turning point in our nation's history in order to remind ourselves of the fragility of freedom. The U.S. Civil War tore our nation in two and nearly brought this great experiment to democracy and freedom to an end. I'm confident many of you are familiar with the Gettysburg Address. Therefore, I'd like to touch on this briefly and ask that you grasp the significance of what President Abraham Lincoln's message to the nation was. His message regarding the dead on that battlefield that day, as well as many battlefields yet to be bloodied by our nation's heroes. As part of the dedication ceremony of the Gettysburg National Cemetery on 19 November 1863, just a few months following the carnage of what we later know as the Battle of Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln gave one of the nation's most moving and remembered speeches. In just 2 minutes and 271 words, beginning with now famous phrase, 87 years ago, referring to the signing of the Declaration of Independence some 87 years earlier, Lincoln extolled the sacrifice of those who died at Gettysburg in defense of those principles, and then urged our nation to ensure that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. President Lincoln's words, although brief, are some of the greatest words ever spoken. These dead shall not have died in vain. And just as those dead some 160 years ago have not died in vain, the servicemen and women henceforth did not die in vain as well. Our great nation endures today because of the ultimate sacrifices of the countless men and women who came before us and those who are yet to serve. The service members we honor today came from all walks of life, but they shared several fundamental qualities. They possessed courage, pride, determination, selflessness, dedication to duty and integrity. All the qualities needed to serve a cause much greater than themselves. Many of them didn't ask to serve. Many of them didn't ask to leave their homes to fight on distant battlefields. Many didn't even volunteer. They didn't go to war because they loved fighting. They were called to be part of something bigger than themselves. They were ordinary people who responded in extraordinary ways in extreme times. They rose to the nation's call because they wanted to protect a nation which has given so much to them and has given so much to us. Since the first shots at Lexington and Concord were fired and our Revolutionary War began, American men and women have been answering the nation's call to duty. Millions of Americans have fought and died on battlefields here and abroad to defend our freedoms and our way of life. Today, our troops continue to make the ultimate sacrifices. And even as we lose troops, more Americans step forward and say, I will go to protect our freedom, to protect our nation, to defend it from the tyrants who wish to take away our freedoms that we enjoy every day. They say, I'm ready to serve. The idea for Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, arose from the ashes of the Civil War. Following the Civil War, at least 620,000 Americans
both Union and Confederate, had been killed and hundreds of thousands maimed. Homes, schools, and churches from Antietam to Vicksburg were riddled with bullet holes. The war's unprecedented carnage and destruction was on a scale not even imaginable by our nation a few years earlier. And it changed America's view of war forever. From those dark times, it was the families who were honoring their dead that began to bring the light of reconciliation to our great nation. Although there are different versions of how Memorial Day began, one story goes that grieving families, both northern and southern alike, set aside their differences. And they began decorating the graves of the lost soldiers with flowers and wreaths. In one city in Mississippi, people decorated the graves of both Union and Confederate troops out of respect for the families of those who served. They were Americans. The Southern mothers and fathers and family members who decorated the Union soldiers hoped that the same honor would be bestowed upon their loved ones who never made it back from the North. These informal honors led to the first Memorial Day observance in Waterloo, New York on May 5th, 1866, just 1 year following the end of the Civil War. Congress officially recognized Memorial Day as a federal holiday in 1887. Since then, with each passing year and subsequent conflicts, we've continued to honor our troops. We have awarded medals to soldiers, added their names to monuments, and named buildings for them, to honor them for their bravery and for their ultimate sacrifice, so freedom may endure. But nothing can ever replace the hole left behind by the fallen service member, and no number of medals nor ribbons can comfort the ones left behind. That said, I'd like to take just a moment, and if you're able to stand and you are a veteran who served, please stand so your community can recognize you. If you cannot stand, please raise your hand so your community can recognize you as a veteran, because we are here today because of them. Thank you. Please be seated. Now I'd like to ask the same of the family members. If you're able to stand, please stand. If not, please raise your hand. We know you have lived through difficult times as a family member and often taken the heavy load keeping the home fires burning while your significant other, your loved one, was out serving this great nation of ours. Please give them a round of applause as well. Please be seated. Your presence here today, and that of the people gathering all across America, is a tribute to those lost troops and to the families. It is just one small way to say that we remember, and one small way to say thank you, so we may enjoy the freedoms of liberty and democracy that we enjoy today. From the soldiers who shivered and starved during the winter at Valley Forge, to the doughboys who crouched in muddy trenches in France, to those who fell on the beaches of Normandy, to the platoon who patrolled the hazy jungles of Vietnam, and the young men and women who patrolled the streets of Iraq or the mountains of Afghanistan, to the servicemen and women of all conflicts, too numerous to mention. We remember and honor them all. In closing, I'd like you to draw attention to General Douglas MacArthur's farewell speech upon the occasion of his retirement after 61 years of military service. His speech, duty, honor, country. This address by Douglas MacArthur to the cadets of the U.S. Military Academy in May of 1962 is a memorable tribute to the ideals that inspired the great American soldier. It's important to note, if you notice that date, 1962, the graduating officers of the military academy. That was on the hills of the Vietnam War. Many of them soldiers, those graduating cadets, lost their life to protect our freedom. To quote General MacArthur's words, duty, honor, country. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying point to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. Nearly 2,500 years earlier, Athenian general, historian, and philosopher Thucydides once said, "The bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what is before them. Glory and danger alike, and yet notwithstanding, go out to meet it." Although these words were spoken centuries apart, they held true then as they do now. But more importantly, they are more than just words or catchy phrases. They embody the spirit of the brave and the selflessness of those great men and women who set aside personal comfort and were willing to lay down their life for the noblest of causes, to protect and defend what they held so dear, our precious freedom. Lest we never forget those who came before us and those who are yet to rise to the occasion, so our nation may endure, and as President Abraham Lincoln said, so our nation may not perish from the earth. Thank you for attending today. God bless you and your families. God bless our troops. God bless America. Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce Pat Rougie to make presentations for the 8th grade Americanism Awards and the Gold Star Mothers.
Are there any in the audience today? A Gold Star parent has had a son or daughter killed while on active military duty. Our area has had quite a few Gold Star parents. Unit 62 had 9 Gold Star mothers as members of our auxiliary, and I would like to pay tribute to them today. Awilda Wise, Mary Bowen, Margaret Glenn, Carolyn Pate, Flora Dodson, Emma Wingert, Ruth Ishman, Evelyn Weiss McElwain, and Phyllis Himes. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. May they rest in peace.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Rougie. I'm the president of ALA Unit 62, John Jacob Fisher Unit 62 here in Punxsutawney. Each year, the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary present awards to the 8th grade boys and girls who have been chosen by their teachers for their honor, courage, scholarship, leadership, service, and Americanism. This year we have 2 8th grade boys and 2 8th grade girls. Our first recipient actually received her award on Friday because she was not able to be here today, was Olivia Gross, daughter of Amy Holinek. Olivia is a student at the Punxsutawney Area Christian School. Our second recipient is Isadora Gorley, daughter of Matthew and Elena Gorley. Isadora is a student at the Punxsutawney Area High School. On behalf of the American Legion Auxiliary, I'd like to present you with this award and thank you for your Americanism and your service to your school and your country. The boys who are receiving awards, the first is Matthew Knorr, son of Joshua and Robin Knorr. Mason is a student from the Punxsutawney Area High School. On behalf of the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary, I'd like to present you with this award and thank you for your service, your Americanism, and your service to your school and country. And our last recipient is Isaac Markle.
Actually, that's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Isaac is the son of Jen Markle and is a student at the Punxsutawney Christian School. Thank you for your service. Congratulations to all of you.
Stove here and burn them all at once. So normally we do that one at a time or a group at a time, but we're just going to read them and then I'll burn them all at once. Glenn Homer Adams, Keith Thomas Adams, Charles Leroy Anderson, Clarence Robert Aldridge, Frederick Amino, Frederick Charles Allenbaugh, Clifford Leroy Bear, Roger Lee Baird, Thomas James Baker, Christine L. Baker, Miles Arthur Bolvin, Francis John Bozick, Clyde V. Bracken, John William Brooks, Randall Lee Brooks, Michael Brodnock, James D. Burkett, John Percy Burkett, Paul Brooks Burnside, Bruce Albert Blocksdorf, Edward Anthony Borelli, Darlene Christine Brzezinski, Ronald J. Canton, Michael J. Sokolsky, James A. Colonna, Randy Joe Combs, Thomas Leo Crumlish, Anthony G. Capazzoli, Dorothy Jean Corian, George E. Catroch, Lawrence R. DeChurch, William E. DeFelice Sr., Raymond A. Depp, Joseph Kurt Dickey, Ned E. Drake, Harold Philip Dubinsky, James L. Dunlap, Randy Vincent Dabata, Robert Merton Deet, John Floyd Dinger, Terry E. Dinger, Ray Wilson Dinsmore, William Ronald Drummond, Walter H. Dixon, John W. Fairman, Richard G. Fetterman, Stephen W. Fairman, James Arthur Eckelberger, Boyd C. Elkin, Dorothy Olive Elvo, Thomas Preston Elkin Sr., the Reverend Lloyd E. Getch, Andrew John Gressack, Pat O. Hanley, Robert L. Hanley, Robert H. Hart, Frank T. Harrell Jr., Bernard David Huyon, James Francis Ritz, Walter R. Hurd, Robert Aber Haig, Bradley J. Holman, Arnold Gene Harkins, Joseph A. Henniger, and James L. Hollis, Ronald Francis Infantino, Samuel J. Ishman, William Joseph Jarbeck II, David L. Johnson, Jack Leroy Johnston, John Michael Koramos, Theodore Andrew Colson, Samuel Levy, Philip L. Lewis, John E. Long. Frank Joseph Manco Jr., Robert Merle McCoy, Harry Eugene McGee, Patrick R. McGuire, Howard McEwen, Victor Jack Miller, Robert T. Milligan, and Nick R. Manoski, Glenn E. Moore, William Perry McKean, Michael P. Miko, Raymond A. Obremski, Michael F. Pape Jr., Adam David Patterson, Philip Vincent Pavlek, Harvey Laverne Pierce, Robert Donald Petroff, John S. Phillips, William Damian Phillips Sr., William J. Pride, Leon I. Pepple, Kathy J. Pasternak, Gilbert Reed, Leonard J. Ricardo Sr., Robert M. Riggy, William S. Rogers, Joseph Smatlack, Martin E. Snyder Jr., Lee Carl Stallman, Terry P. Stallman, Richard D. States, Roger L. Steele, James Stello, Kenneth E. Stoddard, Paul Edward Strawcutter, Michael Allen Schaefer, Michael W. Shaw, Michael Stanley Scarbeck, Robert James Smouse, John Rocco Stellabuto, Terry E. Seeger, Edwin Allen Schaefer, Robert L. Siebert, Richard C. Schaefer, Arthur Allen Toven Sr., Frank James Vandervoort, Joseph William Bocheco Jr., Kevin Thomas Villela, William J. Williams, George W. Weinberg, Gerald D. Wright, Patrick Francis Wright, William D. Ward, George L. Wilkins, and John Robert Yenzi.
Remember that it was worth fighting for. We ask you to hold Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and the United States of America in your hands, to provide us with the courage, the passion, and the strength to endure. We love you and we trust you with these things. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Thank you for coming again. Everybody have a great day.